What's up guys, I'm Phoenix Master 1 and welcome to my builds guide and refined review for Legendary Eliwood, Yune and Duo Hector. So Legendary Eliwood already had a pretty good remix, but the real zero to hero has been Yune in this batch. So she really struggled as a dark mythic and faced a lot of competition, but now after her refine and remix, in my opinion, she is pretty much the best mythic after like Medius and Note, and they do open up the 7th slot. But I do feel like when it comes to the combat and support, Yune is just really good and is better than like Bramimond. So Yune with Chaos Manifest is going to be getting plus 11 attack and plus 10 resistance in combat. She still has the guaranteed follow-up attack, but the new thing that she gets in this primary condition is damage reduction in the player phase on foe's first attack. And the damage reduction that she gets is actually calculated by the highest total debuffs of the foe and the foes within 2 spaces of that target times 2. So for example, if you debuff a foe or a foe near them for -7 to all of their stats, then she's able to get 56% damage reduction. And keep in mind that this damage reduction has no cap. So this can actually go up to like 100% damage reduction if you panic them and if you also debuff them. Keep in mind that the panic debuffs and the regular debuffs do add up. So if she has got more than 50 debuffs on the opponent, then she can easily get like 100% damage reduction. Obviously, this is not going to be happening all the time, and most of the time she's going to be getting around like 50 plus damage reduction, but that is still really good as a combat mythic and Aether Raids offense, especially for surviving a lot of the safe tanks. So this kind of damage reduction actually makes Yune deceptively bulky, and it can definitely lead to some funny scenarios with like 100% damage reduction and her not taking any kind of damage. Keep in mind that this damage reduction is going to be completely pierceable by lethality and deadeye and all of those skills, but still it's definitely pretty good. And she can also get true damage based on highest total debuffs of the foe and the foes within 2 spaces of that target. So this is basically dominance, but you could actually say that this is proxy dominance. There is some parallels between her proxy dominance and the proxy blade tome that Ashera has got, for obvious reasons. So with this kind of proxy effect, even if the foe that she's targeting has got some kind of debuff neutralization skill, the other foe that are within 2 spaces of her that are debuffed are going to be adding to the true damage. And that pretty much works similarly for her damage reduction as well. You can already dodge her effects even if you have debuff neutralization on your main tank. So that's what makes Yune into a pretty big threat, because usually you would just run an armor with like Slick Fighter or debuff neutralization and you would be fine. But Yune can still get that damage reduction and the true damage based on the proxy effect. So this is definitely solid as a weapon refine, and this kind of weapon refine definitely needs a lot of debuffs, and debuffs is what she gets with her new slotsy skill, Chaos named Plus. So this skill is completely evolved now. It does not have any kind of resistance check, it does not have any kind of 3-column range. Instead, it's a global skill and it's an omni chill effect which can affect a lot of the foes and the foes that are within 2 spaces of them. So it's extremely easy to debuff multiple foes at the same time, and this makes her into a really good Aether Raids defense unit and just a good support unit in general, because it doesn't matter where she is on the map, she's going to be providing you with the support, and she can also panic the foes which have got the highest attack, highest speed, defense, or resistance. So again, being self-sufficient with this kind of weapon refine and providing this kind of support to your teammates is extremely good, and she is definitely going to be a solid Aether Raids defense unit, especially along with Brattle Katria. Dark defense has definitely gotten really solid with Medius, and now also Yune providing you with the panic, the chill, and providing such amazing damage output, especially when you use her with Brattle Katria. And there's no Elemine or anything like that to stop Brattle Katria from doing that, or even stopping Yune from triggering her slotsy skill. And even if she's going to be dying in the combat, she can at least support your teammates with the chill effect. So now, even outside of Aether Raids defense, Yune is going to be a pretty amazing support unit with her slotsy skill alone, and she can definitely clean up units with her weapon refine. And if you want to build her up on a budget, then you can simply give her Wings of Mercy in the slot B, as we don't really need the sabotage resistance anymore. She does get attack resistance unity as a remix skill, so definitely learn that, because it's a upgrade of the bond skill. and you can easily run Iceberg and have a formed Sacred Seal. So this is a budget Yune that you can easily use in Aether Raids defense and in any kind of game mode. But in my opinion, if you want to invest a bit more into her, then Sturdy Impact is something I would recommend because she only gets the damage reduction on foe's first attack in the player phase. So Sturdy Impact can provide you with the follow-up negation, and it also provides you with the extra defense, which can definitely help with her survival. And Guard Effect can make it even more annoying for a lot of the armor units because even if they kill Yune, at least they're not going to be charging up their special, and then they can set up the kill for some other unit on your team. So Sturdy Impact and Guard can definitely make it pretty annoying, and this kind of build can be used in Aether Raids defense as well as in Summoner Duels. Even in Summoner Duels, I would recommend to use her with Brattle Katria. It's just really good, and Deflect Magic is going to be really annoying for her, but she can definitely hit really hard against the common far safe tanks, especially if they're blue color, and also provide your Summoner Duels team the Chaos Name support, which is really amazing. You can also use her with a Fortray skill and a Cat skill because she can get so many debuffs. The Cat Sacred Seal is pretty good on her to increase her defense, and you can do the same with her Slotty skill as well and get the Fortray skill to get some mobility going on. As her special, you can definitely run Glimmer so that you can trigger this in a single round of combat. And range flyers don't really have too many options. Like Sturdy Impact and Guard are going to be the most common skills that you're going to be seeing on Yune. But if you want to go further and invest even more, then Seal Resistance 4 is something that you could run on a max investment Aether Raids defense Yune. And Seal Resistance 4 can provide you with even more damage output and also provide you with the Guard effect. So that is definitely much more expensive than the regular Guard skill, but it does help you have much better damage output. And that's definitely going to be paying off, especially when you use her with Brattle Katria for that brave hit. You can also use her in Arena. Even though she doesn't really score all that high, she is still so amazing with that support that she can provide with Chaos Name Plus. And then you can just run Guidance so that you can provide some more support to your team. And flying units rule Arena pretty much. The maps are really flyer favored, so you can easily run that. Yune definitely wants to have that attack IV so that when she's used with Brattle Katria, she can hit the hardest. But her Ascended IV is definitely pretty flexible. You can try and ascend her Resistance IV if you want to have more magical bulk. And she also has a defense super boon, so it's definitely flexible depending on what you want to do. You can even go with the HP IV if you want to use her in Pawns of Loki and provide this kind of help to your friends, because Yune is definitely going to be a menace in Pawns of Loki as well because of her support and the damage that she can do. Legendary Eliwood has always been a pretty amazing support unit because of being able to provide bonus doubler with his weapon, but with his Refine and Remix, he just goes to a next level for supporting your allies, and he's the kind of unit that could be used in any kind of game mode for the in-game content, for Aether Raids offense, for Summoner Duels, especially with the raid bosses by stacking up a lot of stats on them, and now his support has become much better. So when it comes to his weapon refine, it is definitely a bit more combat centric. Unfortunately, it doesn't really double down on that support, but still having a combat weapon refine is not the worst thing because he can definitely clean up, even if your main unit just dies in something like Summoner Duels, and your opponent definitely has to respect Legendary Eliwood and his damage output now because he can definitely kill things a lot easily now. So he's not the kind of support unit that is not very offensive like Elimine, for example, that he can just be in the range of and not really be troubled by them. Legendary Eliwood can definitely hit hard now. So with this weapon, he can get +8 to all of his stats, and now he can also give himself the bonus doubler along with the ally who has got the highest attack. He also has the dull all effect built into his weapon, which means that he just neutralizes any kind of foe's visible buffs, which is really amazing for hitting hard and just ignoring any kind of visible buffs, which are going to be quite common. And finally, he can get true damage based on 15% of foe's defense. This can actually work with the AoE specials as well, but mostly Eliwood is going to be working as a support unit himself, and pre-charging his AoE special is not the easiest thing, but still getting this true damage is going to be pretty amazing against many of the tanky units which have high defense. And Vision of Arcadia 2 is the real prize here when it comes to the support, so it's absolutely stacked now. Your team does need to have a dragon or a beast ally to activate the skill, but it shouldn't be too hard because we have a lot of very good units in those two categories. So if that is activated, then he can give +6 attack, speed, defense, null panic, and Canto 1 to himself and the ally with the highest attack. having the null panic effect to himself and the ally is really good because bonus doubler's weaknesses is definitely the panic effect and the lull skills. So null panic is definitely going to be saving you against one of those weaknesses. If your main high attack unit has got hit and run, then they can actually retreat 2 spaces with that skill and Canto 1, so it can definitely be pretty helpful in something like Summoner Duels where Canto control is pretty common. So yeah, Legendary Eliwood is just a very solid wind legendary unit who can provide amazing and unique support. There's no other unit that can provide an ally Canto 1 other than Harmonic Tana. And Eliwood can provide you with the Canto 1 and bonus doubler in a global range, so you don't really need to be within like few spaces of him to get this effect, which is definitely pretty good. And he himself gets these effects, so while he's not going to be anything like Brave Seliph, he's still no joke when it comes to the combat because he can stack up the stats with bonus doubler and have the double effect and the true damage. So not much has changed really. You can just run him with his default build and have him with Vision of Arcadia 2 and the Weapon Refine. Even without Weapon Refine, he can function if you're really low on Divine Dues, but yeah, you can basically use him as a support with the double chill skills and simply have him buff up the units with bonus doubler and Vision of Arcadia 2. But he can definitely make use of the flow refresh that he gets as a remix skill. And you can also use him in Aether Raids offense as a support unit with a different slotty skill that can actually give you some speed, so it can help you in cleaning up. And you can also run a Ruse skill. So Ruse skills have been available on the Ephemera units as well as in the Divine Codes. So depending on your main Omni tank, you can choose the Ruse skill. And the Ruse skill is going to be providing you with even more support. And the guard effect can be really helpful for any kind of Omni tank. For tanking an Aether Raids defense team. And then Distant Guard can just help you against those threatening range opponents. But the Sacred Seal is definitely pretty open for any kind of change. You can even run Drive Attack or Drive Speed depending on your unit. So yeah, Ruse is always going to be a pretty amazing support option. And now after his Weapon Refine, because he can get the extra HP, you can run the Even Pulse tie build much better. And he can also buff up a lot better with Vision of Arcadia. So if you want to optimize your build for Summoner Duels, then you can definitely try and run Even Pulse tie, and he can hit like 59 HP with HP Boon, and that is actually not that bad of a benchmark because you're going to be Even Pulse tying Lethality Rays, Deadeye Duochromes, and Askers with like a Squishin pre-charge, so that is definitely not that bad. And people are going to be playing around this kind of effect by having multiple units with pre-charge specials. But still, like Even Pulse tie support is something that you can also add to your team, even though it's not the best thing now because we have Asker, Duochrome, and so many of the other ways of pre-charging specials. And he's going to be amazing with his support for raid bosses, the units which do want to stack up a lot of stats, and bonus doubler, null panic, and the visible buffs just help you in that. Eliwood's Weapon Refine is definitely combat centric, so if you want to focus on his combat, you can try and give him attack speed catch 4, and like I said before, hit and run is actually pretty good with Canto 1 that he can get, so you can definitely run that, but again Flow Refresh 3 is an option, and funnily enough, even though Flow Refresh 3 is his remix skill, you're not going to be seeing this on these builds because I have Flow Guard on the next build, because Flow Guard is a better skill than Flow Refresh, because the guard effect can pretty much prevent an enemy from triggering their special or charging their defensive special, and you can just run a full offensive build with attack speed clash 4, Ruptured Sky, and the flow skill at max investment. He is a wind legendary unit, so he's always useful in arena in the wind seasons, and while he's not going to be the highest scoring wind legendary unit, he can still function really well and just boost up like the highest attack ally with his Vision of Arcadia and Ardent Durandal, and you can even try and attack match your allies so that they all have the same attack, in which case all of them are going to be enjoying the support from Eliwood, but that's definitely easier said than done. So because he's one of the earlier pair up legendary units, he doesn't really score all that high, but if you can grab like a tier 4 sloppy skill, then he can basically score like a 180 BST unit, which is going to be his max. And with Chill Defense Resistance 3, he can just support your team even more, and he can just, even run the Feint skills, which are not really seen all that much, but when it comes to support, it can definitely be used. Duo Hector is the first duo unit to get a weapon refine, and it is rather tame in nature, but still it can help him tank a bit better, and it's definitely gonna be making him viable as a tank, especially as a near safe tank, because of the damage reduction and the healing that he can get. Unfortunately, the primary condition is a bit odd. No pun intended, because it is either going to be working in the odd number turns or if the foe is not at full HP. So using him with Duma is definitely going to be pretty helpful. And with this weapon refine, he can get +8 to all of his stats, and he does have the armor effective damage as well, and he gets damage reduction on foes first hit depending on if they double him or not. So if they can double him, then he can get 60% damage reduction, and if they cannot double him and not make a follow-up attack, then he can still get 30% damage reduction. So in this case, it is kind of similar to Valentine Gustav and Pirate Surtur with the damage reduction on the first hit, but even if like he's not getting doubled, he can still get that damage reduction, which is still quite good. He can also get debuff on attack and defense of the opponent in combat, depending on 10% of Hector's visible attack stat. And this is not going to be the highest debuff, but still it could be useful for tanking. And then finally, he can get 7 HP healing after the combat. This weapon refine is not the worst thing, but still it's kind of tame because it doesn't really give him auto follow up or like guard effect or anything too unique. And we do have Arcane Eleuthir as an alternate option that he can run on him. And this weapon can give him the damage reduction kind of like Valentine Gustav and Pirate Surtur, but he is missing out on the -1 special cooldown. So unfortunately, unlike them, he can only retaliate back with bonfires and, one-shot a lot of opponents. He will have to run a 2 cooldown special with a Breath Sacred Seal. So this weapon refine, while can help him in tanking, it's not really going to be reinventing the wheel or really making him stand out as a near safe tank compared to the already existing options that we have. If you want to use him on a budget, then you can simply run him with attack defense form from Karen. And distant counter is not going to be giving you too much output, especially at unmerged, because the range threats are definitely pretty insane, especially if you want to use him in something like Arena Assault, where his effective against armor damage can definitely be helpful, and he can also be used in like limited hero battles on a budget, so this is a build that you can run. But if you want to invest a bit more into him, then near safe is going to be the way that he can run, and even at +1 merge, he's going to be functioning as a pretty decent near safe tank because of the damage reduction. Thankfully, when it comes to melee threats, there are not too many units which can pierce through the damage reduction, so that can definitely help him. And the damage reduction and the healing that he can get can definitely help him with the survivability. So either you can run a 2 cooldown special with Steady Breath, or you could run a 4 cooldown special like Ignis to do a lot of damage. But keep in mind that if the foe can double you, then they could even trigger their special if they have Null Guard and do a lot of damage. And that's why running a stand skill is definitely going to be helpful here to get the guard effect against the opponents who do not have Null Guard. And we have gotten Halloween Degencia, so Slick Fighter is an option when you're running a stance skill in the slot A. You can also run Attack Defense Bond 4 from Dancer Quan, Ephemera Manual that we have got. And if you're running Bond 4, then Crafty Fighter becomes the natural choice of the slot B skill so that you can get the guard effect. And you can even run Attack Defense Unity if you want to, but Attack Defense Bond 4 is, I guess, the free-to-play friendly option with the recent ephemera that we have gotten. So this could definitely be run with a 2 cooldown special and Steady Breath. And these are going to be the main builds that you could run on him. Either you run the stance slot A skill for the guard, or you run Crafty Fighter for the guard. Guard is just so important for a tank like him that is going to get doubled quite a lot, especially at this kind of low investment. And because he doesn't get a follow-up, you pretty much need a skill so that he can double in his enemy phase. And if you want to look for some spicy builds, then I definitely have some here with a speedy build. Now, yeah, speedy armors, especially someone who's not very fast at base, might seem like a meme, but this Hector is the fastest Hector that we've got in the game. So he does get +8 speed from his weapon, which is not something a lot of other Hectors get. They are just attack and defense focused. So you can definitely try and stack up speed on him with attack speed Bond 4, attack speed near save, and the Form Sacred Seal. And in a way, you're going to be cutting your damage reduction, because if the foe cannot follow up attack, then you only get 30% damage reduction, but still that can be pretty nice, especially at this kind of max investment, and you can retaliate back with a 2 cooldown special and with special fighter helping you with that. So it's definitely a spicy build. I'm not gonna say it's like the most optimized build, but it can definitely be a fun build. And I feel like with Hector and with this kind of weapon refine, we could definitely experiment with some fun builds. Don't worry, I'll be going with the serious options later on as well. With Distance Stance and Warding Breath, you can definitely try and get the extra resistance, and attack is the main boon you should be going for because he can get the debuffs on the opponent depending on his visible attack stat, so that is going to be pretty helpful. And then finally, you can also use him in Arena if you do have him at Plus and Merge. And in Arena, Close Defense 4 with its buff neutralization is going to be really helping you because a lot of people are going to be using the visible buffs and the rally skills there, so you can run that and have Crafty Fighter. And even though he's like a duo armor unit, he can only score 185 BST, which is not all that high in the modern times, but still, if you have him and if you really want to use him, then this is definitely an option. And do not forget that in Arena, you can easily use his duo button. So he's basically like a walking bolt tower, which can help your Arena team pick up the kills much easily, especially your bonus units. So he can definitely have usage there with his duo button. And in a way, they kind of want to encourage the usage of duo button with his kind of weapon condition. But it's not all that easy to do in Aether Raids offense when we have duo's hindrance. And you could definitely use him in summoner duels, but we just have so many better duo units and literally a better sword armor in like Summer Edelgard. So it is going to be a bit hard to, slot him into your summoner duels team when every single slot matters so much. And now time for some serious builds if you want to replace his weapon. Now I know this is regarding his weapon refine, but still I don't think I'll get another chance of talking about the alternate options for his weapon. So Wyvern Katana Plus from Ninja Har is an option that you can run, and you can pretty much make him like an Arden that actually has high attack stat. So with this kind of build, he can trigger Ignis on his Brave Hit after he takes an attack from the opponent, and that can definitely do some monstrous damage with his kind of defense. And Wyvern Katana Plus does give you extra defense, so it is definitely pretty helpful for a bulky build like this. So if you want to have the Brave Hits with Duo Hector, then this is definitely an option. And Arcane Elutnir is always going to be an option available. And honestly, I kind of like Arcane Elutnir a lot more than his weapon refine. And the reason for that is because it can open up so many options. You can run Attack Defense Unity in a slot, you can run Close Defense 4, you can literally run any kind of other skill than Stand skill because you get the guard effect out of Arcane Elutnir, and you also get the auto follow up and the follow up negation. So Hardy Fighter just becomes a much better option here, and with Escutcheon and Hardy Fighter, you're pretty much getting 50% damage reduction on both opponents' hits. So that is really good for the survival. You're going to be trading off the healing and the armor effective damage. But if you want to use Hardy Fighter and not be locked to Slick Fighter or Crafty Fighter, then Arcane Elutnir is an option. And like I said, I do like it a bit more than his weapon refine because it's a bit tame for my taste. But it really depends on, your usage and how you want to use your Duo Hector. And finally, in Summoner Duels S, he could also be used as a far save unit, and Arcane Elutnir is definitely much better for that because you can run Sylvalan Shield and still get the guard effect out of the arcane weapon, and you can also run Aegis and pre-charge it with Hardy Fighter, and Sylvalan Shield is going to be needed here for the Duochrome matchup, and you can also run Deflect Missile so that if you face him on a Brattle Catcher team, you do not get nuked and killed. So that is definitely going to be helpful here, and because he's not the slowest armor, he can actually get some use out of the Hardy Fighter against some of these slower units who have got auto follow up, so that can definitely be pretty helpful at this kind of max investment. Make sure to share this video with your friends if you're trying to build up any of these new units with the weapon refine. And if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and a comment, helps me tremendously. And if you really enjoyed, you could always support me directly by using super thanks down below or by becoming a YouTube member as well. And for more FEH videos, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as Yune's damage reduction against twin blades. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.